Okay, guys, this is the intake port with the original bowl blend and increasing the pinch. Notice it hasn't really changed our liquid. I would say it's maybe just a tiny bit narrower than it was because it is going to change the speeds through the port a little bit. I think my buddy approaching target said something about the short side speeds when you change the pinch, and I don't 100% agree with that. I think the air speeds on the pinch are dictated more by what's going on in the chamber itself. Remember, this is a completely stock chamber. Our valve job, the shape of the short side radius and the width of the short side radius and the layback of the short side radius. Remember, this hasn't really had much of a layback. It more like took the sharp edges off and rounded and made it just a little bit wider. Okay, let's take a look at our valve. You can see we've got a lot right on the evaporation ridge, more than we had, I would say, the first time we did this. Let's take a look at the bore. Okay, the bore is starting to get a little bit different look to it as far as our liquid. Not bad for what it is. Remember, bowl job and increase the area of the pinch, along with changing the shape of the pinch. I actually took some numbers at what the pinch was. Let's take a look at those. Okay, these two crappy drawings are the same port. That's the pinch before I did any work to it. Okay, and notice that the bottom of the pinch is 52 thousandths wider than the top. That's interesting, isn't it? Plus, they have a bolt boss where the valve cover bolts in on the divided wall. That takes up some more area. So, I did a quick calculation without the corner radius, and that should flow 222. Now remember, we got 210 out of that with just the bowl blend before it lost it over the short side, and that reduced our flow. So considering what its max CFM is at 28 inches, it's doing all right. The stock pinch does okay. Now take a look at this little scribble mark here. This is after did some work to it. It's 0.964 parallel walls this time, because you have to remember too, if it's narrower up top and the casting is the same thickness, these were like 250 thousandths thick at the pinch where the push rod is, you can't take as much off the top as you can the bottom, because the casting's about the same thickness from top to bottom. Okay, so whatever you can get on the top without blowing through. DV blew through, but I'm going to try not to do that on these. And then just make it parallel. Now, could I make it wider on the floor? I would if the airspeeds dictated it, but we're going to hold off on that. I think it's interesting that the factory did it wider on the floor. Maybe somebody has some insight on why that's done that way. I think the Magnums were the same way. Okay, so it's a little bit taller, 1.955, and it's wider. That should be good for 275 CFM, which I don't think we're going to come close to, but let's take a look at our flows now. Okay, this was our completely stock Tim head with a bowl blend, right? These were all up over what they were without the bowl blend. So these numbers are doing the pinch. Let me put in the pluses and minuses. Okay, our air speeds and so forth. or swirl, I should say, are a little bit confusing. But take a look at what happened. As soon as you open up the pinch, we got a loss, 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 loss. Up to 250 lift, we got a loss. It's good to keep in mind, right? Because the gains that we get aren't very big. A couple CFM here, a couple CFM there. It peaked out exactly the same, 210. 210 at 480, exactly the same spot, which I thought was interesting. Down a touch, up a tiny bit. And if we take a good look at our airspeeds, we'll be able to figure out why. Okay, these are our airspeeds for the bowl blend, and this is after we open the pinch. Notice this completely dumps, right? From 286 to 210. This went down a little bit. This one went down a lot. Now, it's funny because the pinch was the widest on the floor and had the highest airspeed. Usually we always think of the top of the port doing all the action, but you got to measure it. Okay, these were taken at 550 lift. The new ones are taken at 550 lift, so these are our pinch numbers. Okay, as far as the roof, take a look what happened here. Center of cylinder became a lot less active. Now, what would cause that? Well, the turn in that port has to do with a Coanda effect, where the air wants to stick to that curve. Okay, now it has less of a curve and less airspeed, so that Coanda effect would be less. If I didn't get that right, guys, correct me on that, because I haven't read up on that too much, but I think that's what's going on. And your cylinder straight wall side picked up a little bit. Okay, as far as your short side radius, up, up, up. Actually, these are the same, 399. So they're fast. It's fast everywhere, but this went even faster than it was. So the short side did not get touched. Let me show you how far in I did do the pinch, because that's good info. Okay, it looks fully ported, but it's not. I did go over just parts of it to take some lumps and bumps and crap out, but that's it. That center of the cylinder wall has not been brought out anywhere near the DV chunk has, but let's show you how much wider it is with the calipers, and that'll be interesting to look at. Okay, it's going to be hard to do because of the number of hands I have, but let's see if we can get a view on here. Okay, now one thing I did notice on these is we had quite a bit of core shift on these, meaning that, like, the next port over, this pinch wall was not 250 thousandths, not even close. Okay, so before you go and cut your push rod wall as thin as possible to gain area, you better do some measurements and figure out how far off the core shift is, because you may not be able to replicate that port. Now, is that the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world, but you're gonna have ports that are gonna act a little differently. As far as, let me flip this over and you can see the floor, what I did. Okay, I did round it in, because in order to do that wall and get a decent shape on it, you have to change that arc into the port quite a bit. So, it is it fully ported? No, because the walls need work still, as far as width and area and air speeds. And the roof, you can see the grooves side to side to get the curve right, but you can still see the casting mark. Okay. Notice you try to make that curved wall as smooth as you can. You don't want a quick curve there. If you more gradual you can make it, the better it's going to work. Okay, it gives the air a chance to speed up, drop the pressure at that point, and flow more than you might think. You can actually see. Let me get my pointer in there. Notice right here, I took a little extra area out to give it a little. After the pinch, you want to add just a little bit of area on your straight wall, and you can actually see it pretty good in that. Now, does that mean it's done? No, that's doing part of your pinch, because there's plenty of metal left on this wall, and I did that on purpose so I can get my area the same on all of them. If I have to, I can take some extra area out of this side if I get too thin on this side. All right, guys. I think what I'm going to do next on this is that divider. Let's see what that divider. That may be 2 or 3 hours worth of grinding just to get that stupid divider out. I don't know. We'll find out. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.